What happens when your system crashes or your biggest client is furious and the entire team is looking at you for answers?
Definitely, it's not a calm desk job. You get the front row seat to frustration, urgency, sometimes even panic.
And that's the part we don't talk about enough. When service is under pressure, revenue is on the line.
A major outage situation that we had recently. The client was furious. There were business implications on their side. My role was to stay steady, keep communication clear, because there's nothing I can do to affect the issue.
Wait, was this dramatic enough? Today's video is about what great customer service looks like under great pressure, and about why doing it right matters for the business. Let's see what Ziemowit, the support quality leader here at Tex, had to say as he helps us get to the bottom of the topic. When working on this video, I kept trying to think about what great customer service means, let alone when you stick it under pressure. And I also try to figure out what this pressure reveals about the importance of good customer service for any business. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that pressure doesn't just test your team, it actually tests your revenue too. Because when something breaks, it's more than just that, the break. It's actually the whole relationship with the customer at risk. Hi, Ziemo. Thank you so much for joining us on our channel here today.
Hello, thanks for having me again.
You have over 10 years experience in the field of customer support and customer service, and your role is essentially all about supporting your team members. I kind of want to go straight into the deep end here and ask you about these high-pressure moments. Are there any stories that you can share with us about how you deal with them?
One that sticks with me was a major outage situation that we had recently. The client was furious and, well, understandably, there were business implications on their side, and my role was to stay steady, keep communication clear, because there's nothing I can do to affect the issue. And I also had to coordinate behind the scenes without letting the stress leak into the conversation. So at the end, we fixed it, which usually happens, but most importantly, we rebuild the trust during the whole process.
And when there are business implications on the customer's side, that means their operations are affected and their money is affected, and that's a tough spot to be in. So as a support agent, if they lose trust while talking to you during that moment, they will just leave and probably never come back, even if it's not your fault. What Ziemo really highlighted for me is that it's not just about being helpful, it's also about preventing long-term damage and protecting that relationship. We can call it crisis management or damage control. So I think that we can define that as our first pillar of great customer service under great pressure. Because in a crisis, you're not just fixing a bug with a client, you're actually protecting revenue and reputation. Right? Then the next thing we need to remember is who we're talking to.
The biggest truth is that the empathy matters as much as expertise. People will remember how you made them feel, not just whether the issue was fixed, because issues always happen. So understanding that is a huge difference in every interaction.
It's all about the people that you work with, and it's about understanding that the people that are behind the screen providing the support are just as much people as the ones that are asking for it, right? What really struck me is the idea that people remember how you made them feel, not the ticket number or the explanation, but the feeling. And those feelings are what shape decisions, which includes the decision to stay. So empathy is easy pillar number 2 here. It's the reason customers come back or renew their subscription, because, they felt heard, understood, and valued. It's also something that I feel is overlooked a little too often, probably because it's a soft skill, so it's less mindfully worked on, but still a component that this role can't exist without. But yet, there are still times when your buttons get pushed, and it can feel like the end of the world. Okay, a bit extra, but at least the end of that interaction. Empathy is hard when you're triggered. I like to go on Reddit and read about other customer hero stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a customer support agent says something like, that was whatever the client had said to them, that was the end of it. They would either hang up the phone, close the chat. Have you ever have you ever crossed that line? Or felt like you're about to?
It can be pretty exhausting. No, I never left the chat, but I do recall things like taking a 15 minutes break after few hours, for example, of discussing.
Honestly, the horror stories you see online aren't even that wild. It happens, people reach their limit, and this job can be tiring. But I think what's important here is what we just said, the taking a break. Because when we talk about empathy and the role a support agent plays for the business, remember that you don't have to absorb everything endlessly. Instead, know when to take a break so you can show up properly again. We got some insights into how to deal with pressure when you feel like you're at your limit. Do you have any methods or approaches that you use to maintain a positive mindset when it's really stressful?
Step away for a few minutes, take a deep breath, even walk outside. Obviously, exercises help as well. Small moments of a mental reset go a long way in staying positive and focused. So just taking your eyes off the computer and looking through the window.
Yeah.
turning your brain off for a little while. Just a few minutes. That's what helps.
Okay, that's 2 pillars down. But for this to be a strong house that can handle pressure, we'll need 2 more. We talk a lot about speed and customer service.
Hey, do you like speed? I like speed.
Fast replies, fast resolution, fast metrics, but pressure doesn't actually always look like urgency. Sometimes it looks like duration or patience. And Ziemowit told me about a case that lasted nearly 13 hours.
Once we had the client who stayed with us for 13 hours on a single chat.
On chat?
Yes.
13 hours?
I believe that it was me handling the case, and then when I finished my shift, I handed it to my colleague, and the next day I found out that the whole chat took nearly 13 hours. So it wasn't about the issue, it was more about preparing stuff, settings, configuration, things like that. So it was just one step, then you go to another and another.
And you still have to remind yourself probably to keep your cool and treat the case step by step and however long it needs to.
Yeah, that's true.
Now that's a true test of patience. And patience is a virtue, they say. And it's true. No matter what line of work you're in, I believe that it's one of the main things to remember when dealing with customers under great pressure. Because while speed builds momentum, patience builds trust. Let's make that pillar number 3. And it's a strong one. So far, we have safeguarding, empathy, and patience as our pillars to deliver great customer support even if the world around you is burning. The 4th is reflection.
Well, over the years, I simply developed habits like taking notes, summarizing for the customer, which is quite important because they tend to forget what we discussed, for example, 5 minutes ago, and staying calm under pressure. What really helped me is also handling cases where I thought I failed. And then when I went back to them, I was reflecting on them, it just worked out that I didn't.
So is that something that you used to do often or maybe still do often? Do you still go back to try to understand whether what you did was right
quite
or
often.
wrong?
Quite often, because, after all, I'm also a human. I make mistakes. And if I'm not looking back at them, I won't learn. So that's a part of my work as well. I'm also reviewing chats of my colleagues. And quite often, I'm reviewing my own. And it's just, it happens. It's a day when you are in a bad mood. Quite often, you can also do a follow-up because, some things turned out to be more clear to you after, reviewing the chat. That's a good thing about chatting and also having a ticket system.
This can be one of the toughest skills to crack. I mean, even me right now, I feel like I'm not the same person I was 5 minutes ago, let alone last week. But with experience and a good practice of self-reflection, I've been able to become better at what I do. And it's just what Ziemowit was talking about when it comes to handling tricky cases with customers. Before we wrap up, I got Ziemowit to share some top to-dos for fellow support agents, which can serve as a friendly reminder or help anyone just starting out in the role.
Well, quite often you start to panic, and that's the biggest mistake. Going into sort of a defense mode. Under pressure, that's normal, but the better move is to slow down. You have to acknowledge the emotions on both ends. Once the customer feels hurt, the temperature really drops fast. You have to take ownership And that means even if you don't know anything about the case, you just have other teams to help you. So take the ownership of the case and show it to your customer. Do not provide any policies or stuff like that. Keep it as human as possible. It is really appreciated by customers. And that's what I would say you should do. What you should avoid is just don't assume that you know the issue before confirmation. Definitely don't mirror the customer's frustration, which is quite hard because, if you are emotional and you feel that emotions going from the text, you tend to. And don't disappear. That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't have anything to say, just type a short sentence like, I'm still here, I'm looking, I will need more time, and stuff like that.
A lot of lessons in this conversation today, but man, did they make me feel motivated. I wanted to end this conversation with a little self-reflection, which is funny as it came up as such an important topic. But when I asked if Ziemowit felt like this role changed him as a person, this is what he had to say.
Patience and listening carefully is just became a part of my life, so it's not just work. But that helped me to become quicker at finding practical solutions and thinking on my feet.
And do they help you manage the great pressures in life as well?
It comes handy. It comes handy in all sorts of everyday situations. It's like, stopping, listening. That's definitely a great help.
So it's made you a much more calm and collected person overall, right?
I would
Maybe.
have to ask my wife about that because.
Okay, get her in.
I believe I did. Yeah.
If there's anything I'm walking away with from this conversation, it's the realization that great customer service under pressure is all about the habits you instill early on. Like we mentioned, it's things like safeguarding the relationship when things break, remembering that you're dealing with people, having the patience to stay present, and reflecting even when the case is technically closed. Another thing Ziemo said that really stayed with me is that he's learned far more from failure than from the smooth cases. And I think that's true far beyond customer support, because the moments where you think you messed up, the ones that replay in your head, those are the ones that sharpen you. In fact, as Ziemo quoted, don't panic. So whether you work in support, retail, hospitality, or run your own business, I hope this conversation gave you something to reflect on, or at least something to think about the next time things feel like they're spiraling. Did you like this video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that bell button. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next one.